so the Lilting Banshee jig in A minor. Yeah, when you're playing tunes in A minor, especially, it's often good to use a lot of the pull E's on the outside row. Yeah, anyway, you see sort of E's going into A's, partly because it keeps it in one direction, you know, same direction for E on the pull and A on the pull. But also when we're adding in left hand later, your A chord's going to be on the pull. So that means you can, get that going with the A as well. So there's going to be quite a few of those. So we're starting off with pull E up to A. Still on the pull for B's and A's. And you can move yourself up there. So if you start with finger 2 and 1. And then, yeah, use 3 on the B, but put 1 on the A to move up. And you're in this higher position. And then back to finger 3 on this G. Like that. And then you just drop finger 1 out again. So you've ended up on the D on the pull. If you slide it back out to the closest button on the outside row, that's E. Starts the same. And this time you're just going to finish on an A. G is the leading note back in. Okay, when you're adding the second time, there's a couple of ways of getting into the B part, but we'll do the simpler way first. So you finished on your A. If you reach up, finger 2 to the pull D, and I tend to do this with like just crossing around behind. Works fine. If you don't like that crossing movement, you can just sort of use 2 and drag it out from the D to the pull E again. But yeah, I think I sort of prefer when you do one of those, you don't have to think of it as like twist the hand around behind. Just think of it as, you know, finger 3 is sort of hovering on the pull E that you want to get to, bring finger 1 to it, and as soon as finger 2 is in the way, 1 just pushes 2 out of the way. Like that, so you still keep your hand in a comfortable position. So again, we're using pull E up to A at the top here, just like it was at the bottom. And then, yeah, just carry on in that position. Change to finger 3 on that same button, down the pulls. And then this is similar to the A part. Then move up to 2 here. Because then you're coming up this run up the scale. And again, it's sort of across the fingers there. If you 2, 3 on the F sharp, but bring 2 up to the G, like that. So. And again, you're not like reaching over, you just push it out of the way, like that. And that gets you back to the start of, second half of the B starts the same way. Down to finger 3. That's your first B part you're repeating, so again the leading note D, finger 1 behind to the pull E. And again I'll change down to finger 2, push the G as the leading notes, and you're back into the A parts. start. Okay, so yeah, that's your basic way of playing the melody. And then yeah, let's look at some ornaments. So the first thing you'd probably want to add into this. Sometimes between repeated notes, if you've got a bunch of the same notes, then you can put in a cut. So basically what you're doing is if there's two notes the same, then normally you've got that little gap between the notes, so you can hear it's two separate notes. And all you're going to do is plug that gap, just fill it up with a note above. So like between those two A's, you can go to a B. Yeah, it's sort of if you think about instruments like pipes, where you can't really stop the sound and make two separate notes the same. All you can do is change the pitch. It's imitating that sort of thing where the only way we can make the two notes is by going to a different note in between. And for that reason, you don't want it to sound like this. Don't play one note, stop, and then play from the top note down to the first one. You want to keep that first note going all the way up to the high note and back. So it just sort of, rocks back and forth. As you lift one note, the other one comes in. Just press those for any pairs of notes. The places particularly we want to do them, so I think you can take it as a general rule that anywhere there's three of the same note, you're going to want to put a cut in between two of them. So there's three E's there. So if we do like that, two E's, and then cut into the third one. Okay, and then a couple of places in the B part as well. So you've got three A's there right at the beginning. So yeah, you want to be on finger 3. This is why you often don't want to use fourth finger for melody notes, because then you've always got one spare finger for cuts above. So just between the second and third A, cut the B. And then you've got this one that's just like the A parts. Same again. Yeah, I did another one there at the end actually. Between those two A's. So yeah, you can do those anywhere between repeated notes, but yeah, especially if it's three of the same note, you'd pretty much always use one of those. So this is pretty similar. Again, I'm just doing a quick note above down to the main note. Some people would call that a cut as well. Other people just call that a grace note. But again, it's just taking one high note. It feels almost like you're putting them down at the same time and then lifting up off the top one. But you just don't want it to sound quite that blurry and messy if they actually sound together. So you've got to get that first one down just before, like that. So it's just the shortest note you can get just before you play the main note. Make sure you can hear them, because sometimes you can sort of feel like you're doing that with the fingers, but then if you listen, the top note isn't really sounding. So just make sure it is really there. When you're learning to do these at first, you're usually better off exaggerating them, making the top one a bit too long, same with the cuts, just to make sure it's really in there, and then you can sort of tighten them up and shorten them later. But yeah, and that comes with a little bit of emphasis on the bellows as well. That's usually a note you want to emphasise. This G, this C down to the G. And again, there's that cut there at the end between the two A's. sometimes I'm doing cuts between just those two little A's in the group of three. But yeah, they're sort of the the simplest little ornaments, but they can make a big difference. And then let's see, there is place for a bigger ornament here in the B parts. So when we did the simple melody, here we played G, F sharp, G. Now in a jig, anywhere that you get either just one long note that lasts for a whole beat, or like this I'd think of as a symmetrical group of three, where it's G, F sharp, back to G. You can always swap that out for a roll. And this is this sort of full 5-note roll. So if you've got finger 2 on the main notes, finger 3 on the outside row just above it, back to the main notes, finger 1 on the outside row below it, and back. So they're in this triangle. 2, 3, 2, 1, 2. Let's take a bit of practice to get them fast enough to use in the tune, but. And yeah, just one other thing for the right hand was, so yeah, we did the simpler way of running into the B parts. Just that D, but you can also do sort of a run up from the A that we were finishing on to the D that we had as the leading note anyway, the last one. I'm just going to fill in the notes in between, which is B, C sharp, D. And often, it's a fairly typical thing in Irish music, that C sharp's an out of key note, really. It's because we're playing a tune in A minor. But yeah, it works. You can just put that in. So yeah. And again, if you do 2, 3, 2, sort of cross as you come up, moves your hand up. Like that. So yeah, with all that stuff added in. And then, if you want to get some left hand on this, now left hand layouts vary on BC boxes, but I think all of the common ones, Makomsky, Nolan and Burke layouts, I think they all have the same A on the pull here, E on the push. But something you want to think about as well is whether the thirds are in your chords or not. I can't demonstrate this very easily on this box because it hasn't got the stop, it's just got the thirds taped up inside. So I've, because sometimes you get full like major and minor chords on the left hand, that are, you can sort of hear that the C will sound, that C just sounds like this, so it's neither major nor minor. It could be either of those, C major, C minor, it's just neutral. But some boxes, that C chord will actually sound, major, and then that sort of dictates how you can use the chords. and that's particularly annoying if you're A and E chords, or A major, E major, because very often you'll want to use those as minors. So yeah, if you've got thirds in your chords, have a look at a video I've got on how to take them out, because I would recommend it if you're if you're playing BC box for Irish tunes, want to do some left-hand accompanying. Yeah, get the thirds out of your chords. Some boxes have a stop on top that you just pull and that takes the thirds out, but if you haven't got one, I can recommend opening it up and taping them up, because it just makes the box more usable that way. So yeah, we'll go with sort of basic accompaniment first, which is you're just going to go bass, chord, and it actually works pretty well if you just stay on these buttons all the way through, so you're getting an A minor on the pull, E minor on the push, or again just A neutral, E neutral. But if you do that bass, chord, and the way you work this out, so if it's jig rhythm all the way through, you've got those groups of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's bass, nothing, chord, bass, nothing, chord, bass, nothing, chord. Until you get to a longer note like that, so you can hear that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's a longer note there, that G. Don't let that throw you off your sequence, and then we're back into groups of 3, so bass, nothing, chord. You'll hear there'll be a few of these basses and chords that won't really sound perfect in terms of the harmony against the right hand note, but don't worry about that too much at first. Like if you're fairly new to doing this left hand accompaniment stuff, just make sure you can get that rhythm the same all the way through into time. Yeah. So again, if you're new to doing that sort of stuff, don't worry if it takes you quite a while to get that. Most people, like the first, 3 or 4 tunes they learn to do this way, maybe it takes quite a long time just going through and working out, right, which note does which left hand note go with, and piece it together. Just get yourself a couple of bars worked out. Go around that, a few times until it feels really solid. Just gradually put it together. Other people find, if you just practice doing that to time on its own until you feel like you can just leave it going and then play over the top. You got to listen carefully to yourself and notice if any of it's falling out of sync. Because if you're just running on with it going out of sync, that's usually counterproductive and sort of harder to tidy it up later, so you're better off just going slowly from the start, getting it just right. But once you've got that going, the basic way of doing it. Another good one to try next is put the chords exactly where they were. This is bass and chord, by the way, so bass underneath, chord at the top. So you can just take the basses out, play just the chords. This gives this sort of lighter, just off beats. Helps if you're tapping your foot as well, by the way, if you're not already doing that. Tapping your foot's sort of almost more important as an accompaniment to what you're playing than playing the left hand is. So those groups of 3 where you're playing bass, nothing, chord, everywhere you're playing the bass, that's your foot tap. So you're going bass and foot, chord on its own, bass and foot, chord on its own. Which means if you move on to trying this other kind of accompaniment with just the chords, then it's going to be foot, nothing, chord, foot, nothing, chord. And if you get to the point where you can do both of those, yeah, pretty fluently, bass chord all the way, or just the chords all the way, then you can start to mix and match those a bit, meaning that you put in some basses but not all. Can be helpful to start off with just a clear pattern, so maybe do like one bass every 2 bars. So it's going to be, you know, bass, chord, 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 bass, chord, like that. And that's not necessarily the best pattern to end up with, but it's a good way to just start yourself off putting in some but not others, and then, you know, you can try and mix it up and just put them in different places. If you want to start adding in a little bit of movement on the chords over here, the only one I'd really go for adding in at the minute is just try, so this should be pull G, again depending on what left hand layout you have, but it in fact I think it might be on all the common layouts the pull G will be here, so you can try adding this in, just the next bass and chord down here, and back to where you were. Same again. And it works in the same place in the B parts. So here. Just gets you used to doing a bit of movement over there, and yeah, one final thing, maybe the so, you know, if you've got this pattern where it's lending either bass chord, or just chords for a while with one bass, if you want a bit more emphasis on something where you would have put down the bass, you can put both down together and just hold, so like something like this. Just held through and then lifted off where the next bass would have been. Maybe not the best place for them when putting them there, in fact that would have been that chord, so it works quite nicely there. Often to emphasise that you're moving chord as well, so that's a good place to put them. Right at the beginning of a part. You just have to look out for if you're changing direction, then obviously you can't hold it through, but anyway that you stay in the same direction for a while. You can experiment with holding longer. that's Lilting Banshee and some stuff to do with it. Have fun.